On a rainy day in a quiet town, a young black technician stopped by a diner to grab a bite. Across the room, an elderly veteran pushed away his meal. He couldn't afford it. No one noticed, except her. She paid quietly and left. A month later, she returned and found a brand new truck and a letter waiting. One silent act of kindness, repaid with a journey that would change her life. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you watching from. We love to hear your thought. The rain was a slow whispering drizzle when Amara Jenkins pulled her dusty gray van into the cracked gravel lot outside Rose's diner. The windshield wipers dragged across the glass with a tired rhythm, squeaking every other pass like a sigh. She killed the engine, leaned back in her seat, and exhaled. Another job, another town, another quiet meal alone. Amara was 28, with skin the color of dark molasses and eyes that saw everything but rarely gave anything away. She kept her hair pulled back in a loose wrap, soft curls pressing out from underneath like they were always trying to run free. Her hands, calloused, cut and grease-stained, rested on the steering wheel a moment longer than they needed to. The logo on her coveralls had long since faded, but her name patch, Amara, was still stitched clean and proud over her heart. She hadn't planned to eat here, but the warehouse had delayed her parts, and hunger had started gnawing at the edge of her patience. She glanced at the diner's flickering neon sign, then stepped into the rain. Just a quick meal, in and out. Inside, the air was thick with bacon grease and the clink of mismatched silverware. A bell jingled overhead as she walked in. No one looked up. That was how she liked it. She took a booth by the window. The vinyl seat creaked as she slid in. The waitress, mid-40s, bottle blonde, tired eyes but still wearing lipstick, approached with a half-smile and a pen already in hand. "Coffee, please," Amara replied, voice low but firm. "You want the special? Eggs, toast, hash." Amara hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, that's fine." The waitress scribbled and walked off. Amara stared out at the parking lot, watching the rain draw lazy lines down the glass. Her boots tapped quietly beneath the table. She didn't look at her phone. Didn't check the time. There was nowhere to be but here, for now. That's when she saw him. At the far end of the counter, hunched on a red vinyl stool, sat an old white man in a soaked army green jacket. His back was rounded with age or pain, probably both. A faded Vietnam veteran cap drooped low over his eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he reached into the pocket of his worn coat and pulled out a small stack of coins. He laid them out on the counter with the kind of care usually reserved for prayers. She watched as he looked down at his plate. A grilled cheese sandwich, half eaten, sat beside a white mug of now cold coffee. The check was tucked under the edge of the plate. He picked it up, scanned it, and then, almost imperceptibly, his shoulders dropped. Then he did something that pulled her forward in her seat. Slowly, with a shaky hand, he slid the sandwich away from himself, pushed it back toward the edge of the counter, like returning a shirt he couldn't afford at a department store. His lips moved slightly, just a whisper. The waitress came back over, confused. "You okay, Harold?" she asked, her tone soft but tired. "Didn't realize the coffee refill wasn't free," he murmured, not looking at her. "It's fine," she said quickly. "You don't have to." "No," he interrupted, quietly but firmly. "I'll just take the coffee, just take it off, would you?" The silence that followed was heavy, like the diner itself had held its breath. But no one else noticed. A trucker 2 booths over kept scrolling on his phone. An old couple near the window clinked forks without a glance, just another old man having a rough day. But Amara saw, not just the act, but what was beneath it. The pride, the quiet, exhausted dignity, the kind of restraint that comes from a lifetime of holding it together when no one else is watching. She stood before she knew she would. Walked calmly to the counter, stopping just behind the waitress. "Put his tab on mine," she said, voice even, eyes locked on the receipt. The waitress blinked. "You sure? He ain't gotta give anything back. Just do it." The waitress looked between her and the old man. "He won't know." Amara shook her head. "Don't tell him." She reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded 20, and set it gently on the counter. She didn't look at the man, didn't want to take something from him by being seen. Her kindness wasn't for show, It never had been. The waitress gave her a look, part surprise, part respect, but said nothing more. Amara turned, walked back to her table, grabbed her coat. Her plate hadn't even arrived yet. She didn't care, she just wanted to be gone. Outside, the rain had picked up. She pulled her hood up as she crossed the lot, boots splashing in shallow puddles. The door to her van creaked open. As she settled into the seat, she looked back once. Inside, the old man had pulled the sandwich back toward him. Still hadn't looked up. He took a small bite like it hurt his jaw. Smiled at nothing in particular. The waitress stood behind the counter, refilling his coffee without a word. Amara turned the key in the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. She didn't feel heroic. She didn't feel generous. She just felt human. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The van rattled down an empty stretch of highway just south of Little Rock, the low drone of tires humming like an old lullaby Amara never quite learned to forget. Her tools clattered faintly in the back, wrenches, gauges, a dented refrigerant tank, metal reminders of the life she'd built with her own hands. The dashboard clock blinked 2:36 p.m. in faded green. She didn't need it. The sun outside told her the same truth she already knew. Another long day, same as yesterday, same as tomorrow. It had been 5 days since Rose's diner, 5 towns, 4 AC units, 2 broken compressors, and one small act that clung to her like the scent of engine oil in her clothes, subtle, stubborn, and impossible to shake. She didn't think about the old man constantly. It wasn't like that. But there were moments, short, sharp, in-between ones, when his image floated back. Him sitting at that counter, pushing his sandwich away like it cost too much pride to finish. Amara wiped sweat from her temple with the inside of her wrist. The air was thick in the Mississippi heat, and the van's own AC was cutting out again. Irony never ran out of fuel. She pulled into a small gas station near Greenville, topped off the tank, then sat motionless for nearly 10 minutes behind the wheel before driving the last 3 blocks to her next job, an old bakery with a freezer coil on its last leg. She worked in silence, as always. The owner, a friendly woman in her 60s, kept offering sweet tea and asking if she had anyone helping her. Amara just smiled faintly and said, "No ma'am, just me." She'd said those exact words 100 times in 100 towns, and they were always true. Later that night, parked behind a faded motel off I-55, she leaned against the driver's side door and watched the sun bleed into the horizon like it had somewhere better to be. She lit a cigarette, an old habit she rarely admitted to, and stared past the rising smoke. The silence of southern dusk settled around her shoulders like an old quilt, warm, worn, a little heavy. Her thoughts drifted, not to the day's labor, not to the next gig, but to her grandfather. Eugene Red Jenkins, World War II vet, proud as stone, hard as oak, and one of the only people who ever made her feel truly safe. She remembered how he used to sit on the porch with a worn pipe and a newspaper folded just so, how he'd grunt more than speak, but always knew when something was bothering her. There was one winter she thought of often, the year her mama got laid off from the textile plant, and the furnace broke the same week the landlord raised the rent. They didn't have enough, they barely had anything. Her granddad had gone down to the county office to apply for emergency assistance, fuel vouchers, maybe food stamps. But when he came home, his jaw was tight, and he didn't speak the rest of the night. She'd overheard him talking to her mama later. "I ain't gonna stand in line like I'm beggin'. Not when I wore that damn uniform overseas, not when I bled for this place." "But Daddy," her mother whispered, "it's just help, we need it." "I ain't no burden," he said. "Not now, not ever." That memory didn't fade, not the words, not the look on his face, that burn, the kind that comes not from hunger but from the humiliation of needing. It was why she noticed the old man at Rose's diner when no one else did. It was why she couldn't ignore it, even if the kindness had cost her time, a meal, and whatever thin layer of indifference she'd worn like armor. It wasn't guilt, it was recognition. A man who'd spent his whole life holding the world up, now too proud to ask for a damn sandwich. She dropped her cigarette into an empty coffee cup and sat back behind the wheel. Her bones ached from the day's crawl under hot metal, her hands were raw and nicked. But her mind was louder than the engine ever had been. Because that moment, small, quiet, anonymous had pressed into her like a fingerprint on wet glass, and somehow, it stayed. Amara slammed the hood of the walk-in freezer shut harder than she meant to, the metal echoing like a gunshot in the back of the seafood joint in Jackson. Her gloves were soaked, her shirt stuck to her back, and her temper sat just under her skin like a live wire. The part she'd waited on, an evaporator coil for a damn deli unit, had been misrouted. Again. Some warehouse in Baton Rouge marked it for Clear Creek instead of Clarksdale, and now she had to go back. Clear Creek, that name hadn't crossed her mind in a month. But as soon as she heard it, something in her chest shifted, not warm, not nostalgic. Tight, like unfinished business. She didn't want to go back. She didn't do revisits, not in work, not in life, but customers needed cold shrimp, and she needed the part. So she drove. The clouds built up as she crossed the state line, thick and dark and restless. By the time she hit Clear Creek's edge, the rain had already started, a steady needling drizzle, same as last time, like the town didn't know how to greet her any other way. She pulled into Rosa's Diner's lot out of instinct, figured she'd grab coffee while the warehouse guys fumbled with her delivery. Same gravel crunch under her tires, same flickering sign. Same bell above the door that let out the same tired chime as she stepped in. She headed straight for the booth by the window, like it still had her shape in it. The place looked exactly the same. Almost. There was one thing that didn't. Across the street, perfectly aligned with the front windows of the diner, sat a brand new Ford Transit, deep cherry red, polished like showroom glass. No decals, no company tag, no dirt, just gleaming. Like it didn't belong on this stretch of cracked sidewalk in a town full of rust and broken signage, and taped to the windshield in big bold marker was a white sheet of paper, for Amara Jenkins. Her stomach dropped, but her eyes narrowed. She stood slowly, walked to the window like the floor might shift underneath her. She stared at the van, then at the sign, then at Lana behind the counter. "What the hell is that?" Amara asked. Voice low but edged. Lana blinked like she was waiting for this moment. "Guy dropped it off early this morning. Tow truck rolled up, unloaded it real careful. Said it was a delivery for you. Left an envelope and the keys inside. Told me not to call the cops. It was legit." "Who was he?" "Didn't say. Left a name for the note though. Said you'd understand." Amara didn't move for a long beat. Then she crossed the diner, out the door, and across the street in 3 sharp strides, heart thudding, fists half clenched. The rain beaded on the van's pristine paint like it didn't dare stick. She looked through the window. Sure enough, keys on the dash, and a large envelope propped up behind them. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, wet curls frizzed at the edges, jaw locked, shoulders tight. This didn't feel kind. It felt like a setup. Like a camera crew might pop out yelling, "Surprise, you've been chosen," or some twisted contest she never signed up for. She yanked open the door, snatched the envelope, and sat down in the driver's seat without thinking. The smell hit first, new leather, untouched plastic, that rare sterile sweetness that only brand new vehicles carried. Her fingers trembled slightly as she slid the letter free. To Amara Jenkins. The handwriting was clean. Careful, steady, she unfolded it. "Dear Miss Jenkins, my name is Levi Connors. My father, Harold Connors, was the man you helped at Rosa's Diner last month. You didn't know his name. You didn't ask, but he remembered yours. My dad passed away a week after that morning, in his sleep, peacefully. But in the days before he spoke about you constantly. The girl in coveralls he called you. Said you saw him. Really saw him. Said he hadn't felt that in years, not since retirement. Not since Mom died. My father founded Connors Hauling Company, a small family business. Every truck we ever owned, he drove first. He loved the road, he loved hard work. But most of all, he loved dignity. You gave him that, without knowing. Without needing thanks. This van is yours. It's not charity, it's a tribute. Title's in your name. Keys are yours. Use it to keep going, the way he did. From one working soul to another, thank you. Levi Connors. Amara stared at the letter, then at the dash, then at her own hands, grease still under the nails, bandage from a knuckle scrape 2 days ago, trembling slightly. Her throat clenched, but not with gratitude. Not yet. What the hell, she muttered, blinking fast. You don't even know me. She should have been honored, touched. But what came instead was a rush of frustration that burned hot in her chest. She didn't ask for this. She didn't want a prize. She wasn't some damn angel. She paid for a sandwich. That was it. Now this gift was sitting in front of her like it came with expectation. And yet, as her hands gripped the steering wheel, thick, smooth, unused, something else began to stir underneath the anger. Something like awe, or fear, or maybe both. No one had ever done anything like this for her. No one had ever seen her this clearly, either. She looked down at the letter again, lips pressed tight, jaw shifting. Her chest ached, not from pride or sorrow, from being remembered. From finally being seen. She sat there motionless, fingers clenched around the edge of the letter like it might vanish if she blinked. Her breath was shallow, pulled in through parted lips, held like a question stuck in her throat. The rain drummed against the roof of the van, soft and even, like it knew to hush itself now. Amara stared straight ahead, unblinking, her knuckles bone white on the wheel. The seat beneath her was too clean, too firm. She wasn't used to sitting without springs digging into her side, or a tear in the leather flapping beneath her thigh. Everything in this cab felt untouched, everything except her. She didn't cry right away. That part came later, slow and strange, like the tears weren't sure if they were welcome. At first it was just a shake in her shoulders, a tightening around her ribs, then her chest cracked open like a storm surge behind a weak levee. The tears slid down her cheeks with quiet defiance, warm and angry and grateful all at once. Her body curled forward, forehead pressed to the steering wheel, shoulders trembling under the weight of something too big to name. It wasn't the truck. It wasn't the leather, or the chrome, or the crisp smell of new. It was that someone had seen her and remembered, not for what she looked like, or what she carried on her back, but for what she'd done when no one else was watching. That terrified her. And it healed something too. The diner door creaked open behind her. Gravel shifted, then came the light knock on the driver's side window. She didn't look up. You okay? Lana's voice was soft, muffled slightly through the glass but unmistakable in tone. Amara didn't answer at first. She wiped her face with her sleeve, but didn't hide the tears. For once she didn't feel like she had to. She reached down, cracked the door open an inch. Her voice came out hoarse. Yeah, she said, nodding once. Yeah, I'm good. Lana leaned her elbows on the open window, eyes gentle, rain streaking down her arms. That truck really for you? Amara just nodded again, slower this time. Apparently, Lana studied her for a moment, then gave a sad kind of smile, the kind women gave each other when there were no words strong enough to hold the weight. Well, she said, seems like someone out there thinks you earned it. Amara didn't reply. Couldn't. She just looked at Lana, letter still clenched in one hand, and felt the full force of a lifetime of not being seen pressing backward in her chest like a tide trying to turn. That night, long after the rain had stopped and the road had gone still, Amara sat in the driver's seat with the cabin light glowing soft and yellow around her. She held a tattered composition notebook in her lap, its corners curled from years of being shoved into tool bags and glove compartments. Most of the pages were filled with checklists, parts numbers, sketches of old units she'd learned to repair the hard way. But the back half was mostly blank. She turned to the first empty page and hesitated. The pen in her hand felt foreign, like a microphone shoved in front of someone who didn't want a stage. She hadn't written anyone a letter in over a decade, didn't think people still did. But tonight felt different. Tonight she owed something. She started slow, the first words scratchy, unsure. But once they started, they didn't stop. Dear Mr. Connors, I don't know how to say thank you for something like this. I don't think I've ever been given anything this generous in my life, not without strings, not without expectation. When I saw that truck, I thought it was a mistake. Part of me still does. I didn't do anything special. I saw a man trying to hold on to his dignity over a sandwich and a cup of coffee. I didn't know who he was. I didn't need to. I saw my grandfather in him. I saw myself. If I could go back, I'd still pay for his meal. 1,000 times, and I wouldn't ask for thanks. That's not why people like us do what we do. We show up, we help, we fix things, even if no one notices. I didn't know your father's name until today. But I won't forget it now. Thank you for seeing me, for trusting me with this gift. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of the story too. Amara Jenkins. She read it over twice, then folded the page clean along the crease. She slid it into an envelope, addressed it the best she could with what she had, and tucked it into the glove compartment beside the original letter. Outside, the air was still and damp. Inside the van, it was warm, warmer than it had any right to be. Amara leaned back in the seat and let the silence stretch. Her eyes stayed open. But for the first time in a long time, her guard did not. The envelope came exactly 7 days later, slipped into the small P.O. box she kept 3 towns over, the one with the broken hinge and rusted latch. She hadn't really expected an answer. Most people didn't write back anymore. Most people barely spoke without tapping on a screen first. But there it was, cream-colored and thick, addressed in that same careful, deliberate handwriting. She sat on the curb next to the van to open it, legs stretched out, knees dusty from the gravel. The morning sun was still low, casting long shadows across the lot. The world hadn't warmed up yet. She unfolded the letter slowly, breath caught somewhere high in her chest. Dear Amara, I read your letter 3 times, once out loud, once in silence, and once while staring at the sky and thinking about my father. You said you didn't do anything special. That's where we differ. My father spent his life giving, building, driving things forward, literally and figuratively. But in his final days, he felt invisible. He didn't say it that way, he never would. But I saw it, and then you sat down across the diner. You paid for a meal, yes, but what you really gave him was proof that the world hadn't turned its back entirely. That there were still folks out there who looked out for each other without needing a headline or a handshake. You gave him dignity. You gave him peace. If my father ever drove a truck without a name on the door, you've taken the wheel since, not by blood, but by spirit. And that means something to me. Connor's Company will always have a place for you. Whether that's as a partner, a driver, a technician, or just family. You've earned it, Amara. In more ways than one. With respect, Levi Connors. Her fingers trembled slightly as she lowered the letter into her lap. She sat there a while, listening to the quiet. The birds had started their chatter in the trees behind the lot, and somewhere in the distance, someone was mowing their lawn. The hum of it all made the world feel both far away and close enough to touch. She climbed into the van with slow steps, the letter still open in one hand. She didn't close the glove compartment this time. Instead, she placed Levi's words right beside the photo of her grandfather, worn corners, black and white, his jaw strong and proud in a uniform, 2 sizes too big. She hadn't looked at that picture in months, maybe years, but today, it felt like it belonged right there, overlooking the road ahead. Her hand found the ignition. She paused, fingers resting on the key, then she turned it. The engine hummed to life, smooth and steady, like it had been waiting for her. She leaned back, let the sound settle into her bones, and looked out through the windshield at the stretch of highway unfolding in the morning light. The air still smelled new, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was filled, with memory, with meaning, with motion. She wasn't just a mechanic anymore. Wasn't just patching leaks or tuning out noise. She was continuing something. Carrying it forward, and as she pulled out of the lot, tires kissing wet asphalt, the red Ford Transit caught the glint of the rising sun. It moved quiet, steady, certain, no sign on the side, no banner across the back, just a name in the heart of the one behind the wheel. Out on the road again, not alone, not ever again.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.